Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Revenue Diaries. My guest today is Kyle Norton, a friend, a father, a brilliant human being, and I absolutely loved the conversation. The title of this podcast is The Raw DNA of a Competitive Psycho and Loving Father. Pretty much makes complete sense once you listen to the whole episode. But we talk about the corporate athlete mindset, Kyle's lessons from martial arts, parenting, and stoicism, and balancing passion and pragmatism. We talk about a lot of things in this interview. So, without further ado, here's episode 4 with Kyle Norton. Welcome to episode 4 of the Revenue Diaries. I'm here with my friend Kyle Norton of the same name. Kyle, how are you doing?
Good, man. Same name. We got the same beard, and I'm soon to be bald. You've already gone there.
Episode 2 is Jeff Perkins, and we probably spent the first 5 minutes talking about why we shave our heads. So if you're listening and you are also follically challenged like Jeff and I, please go listen to episode
I'm definitely
2.
bald. I'm bald curious. I'm getting close to trying it out.
Okay, so we're going to talk quite a bit about your family, Lake House, where you grew up going to, where you got married, where you got engaged. We're going to talk about your kids, maybe getting the schooling issues that you said you could spend an hour talking about. But I want to talk first about your mindset around physical and mental health. Over the past 2 years, I've taken a more proactive approach with daily exercise and routines and how that affects my stress levels and work, both at work and at home. I know you talked to Scott Barker about this and you use the term slow is smooth, smooth is fast, but I'd love you to give an overview of your mindset about staying mentally healthy as well as physically.
Yeah. In general, I just believe that if you want to perform well in the workplace, you have to treat yourself as a corporate athlete. But at the same time, like this is how you need to stay as well-rounded, stable human. I got 2 young kids. They will push all your buttons.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for me, staying physically active is a really important part of having good mental health. And then there's a bunch I try to do specific to mental health. And so, yeah, I grew up as an athlete for a long period of my time. Mixed martial arts was my focus. I trained like 2, 3 hours a day, 6 days a week, and it was a very big part of my life. And then
At what age did you start that?
teen,
Okay, keep
and
going.
so it's always been, I was a rock climber before that, and after, but I had a couple knee surgeries, almost a back surgery, and that was like the end of my martial arts career. Just it was too hard while working, and then I meandered through a couple years where I didn't have a passion and like a physical passion. Took up squash and whatever, but nothing. And then COVID hit. I had my kid 2 weeks after the first lockdown. We reorged at work. We had to like buy a house and move. Ontario had the worst lockdowns of basically anywhere in the world, maybe outside of China. And so I woke up at some point at the beginning of 2021 in the worst physical condition of my life, and I just sort of realized that like I didn't feel good either. It's weird, it creeps up on you, especially in those
Yes,
circumstances.
100%.
I was like 35 pounds heavier than I am today, and just like I saw myself and I was like, whoa, how did that happen? And then and then I like realized that I was out of shape, but then I started cluing in that I also felt bad. Like I was just waking up not with like pep in my step,
Right.
which my whole life I've woken up like ready to attack the day and did not. And so I've been on the path back since then. And you have to
So
like,
wait, so but you okay, so most people just go run, but you did like rock climbing, mixed martial arts, squash, which
yeah.
I've never played, but squash, what do you that's a very unique grouping of physical activity. What are you doing now?
So now I'm basically on like a longevity program. So I got rededicated to my health, had to work my way up back up to like, okay, I was running twice a week and then I was like lifting weights once a week. And then 2 Octobers ago, I was like, all right, I need to get back. Like, I want to be back to how I viewed myself as a person before. I
Sure.
just reread Atomic Habits, and, part of habit formation is identity formation. So I was like, I am an athlete. Like I am a person that works out every day. And I was talking to my best friend on a call and he had done something similar. I was like, all right, it's almost October. I was like, I'm doing every day October. I am now a person that works out every day. I'm like going back to my roots. And since that day, I did every day October. I missed like one day in November or 2 days in November. And like as of 7 days from today, it will be 2 years in a row of working out every single day without a day missed.
Great, great. Well,
Travel.
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's quite
Yeah.
the routine. So what are you doing on it? Like, is
Yeah.
it you have to do an hour, you have to do 30 minutes, you just have to be active for a certain amount of time? What's the setup?
Mine is I just have to close my rings, like
Ah,
it's
okay.
like 900 calories. So usually have to do 45 minutes. If I like run hard, I only need to do like a 35 minute run. But plus I like take my calls while I'm walking. I like have
Yeah.
to sit too much. I
Yeah.
try to weave in as much as I can. So my typical week is like I lift 3 times a week. I'll do a zone 2 ride 2 or 3 times a week. Because like again, it's this longevity program. So I read Peter Attia's book and I went down the Huberman stuff and all the usual suspects, Rhonda Patrick, Andy Gilpin. And so it's lift 3, zone 2 twice a week. I'll do like one hit run or hit bike. And then
Mhm.
the seventh day, like it depends on how I feel. Sometimes I'll do yoga. It'll be like an hour of
The
mobility
day
and
of
stuff.
rest,
Some
the
days it's
day of
swimming. Yeah. Just something usually lower impact. But like the thing, and I travel a lot for work. So you just got to like flex and fit it in. And I don't
yeah.
try to be perfect with it. I think
Well,
that's the,
we'll get. I think you have. I mean, you made the mention raw DNA of a competitive cycle before we started the recording, which we're going to get into because I told Kyle. For those of you listening, I told Kyle that's probably going to be the name of this episode, but maybe not. But for me, I connect with this identity thing because for me it's been Orange Theory, and I'm
yeah,
approaching my fifth class that I've taken over the past
that's
two
awesome.
years.
Good for you.
I have to have something that's identity generating. Like I have to obsess about it. I have to care deeply about going. And when traveling, the best part is that you could go to these places. I pay one fee a month and you can go
Hmm.
anywhere. And it's pretty likely that you're going to have an Orange Theory location near where you're traveling. So
Yeah.
anybody listening, I'd encourage just 30, 45 minutes a day, just be active. I think that's the bottom line.
And start small. Like you mentioned, I say this a lot, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like oftentimes people rush things. You're like, I want to get back in shape, so I'm going to work out every single day. And then it's too much too
And you get
fast. Your body can't handle
injured.
it. Yeah, you get dinged up, you lose motivation. So, like it took me a full 14 months to go from like running twice a week and then then I like added a lift and then I added another bike and then I did this and this. And so it took me like almost 14 months to go from like being in the worst shape of my entire life and feeling worse than I had ever felt to then working
Yeah.
out 700
But
days in a
you
row.
did it. You were active, you were proactive, you got up every day to go do it. You
Yeah.
also, we'll go back to the competitive psycho side of it, but you made a comment to me before we started recording that martial arts has formed me as a human, and
Hmm.
you think that it helped you with this energy that you have. And I'm going to frame it as the raw DNA of a competitive psycho. Could you give a little bit more shape to what you mean by raw DNA of a competitive psycho? Because I feel like I'm also borderline that, but I have
Yeah.
not diagnosed myself yet.
So here's the diagnostic. It's the litmus test. And this is how I stumbled my way into sales because a recruiter said this to a friend and he was like, "That's you." The recruiter was like, "If you're the person in the game of Monopoly that everybody sort of hates at the end of the game because you're like, you know, taking every little advantage and like, you're not supposed to lie in Monopoly, but you make an alliance and then you break it and you knew you were always going to, but like that's not against the rules. Like, just we're here to win. If that's you, like you might be a competitive psychopath." And so that's that's been
I
me.
think I just diagnosed my 6-year-old as a
Yeah, yeah,
competitive
yeah. There
psycho.
you go.
Yeah.
And so, like, when just winning means a lot. And for me, it's like
Yeah.
not losing means arguably more. And so I've always just been wired that way. Like, I love competition. Like, whatever it is, I don't care. Like, if it's cards or fighting or like competing with
But why
myself.
martial arts? Because that, I mean, you could get competitive in any form, but why did martial arts pop up as something you spent a lot of time doing?
Yeah. So in the very early days of the UFC, there was this guy, Hoist Gracie, who was like 160 pounds. And this is back when they would just put two guys in a cage and there was no rules. And one guy was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, and one guy was a boxer, one guy was a karate guy. And they would just see who wins. And this guy, Hoist Gracie, tapped everybody out. He choked them out or made them submit. And he was like 160 pounds. And I was also 160 pounds, soaking wet at the time. You know, rock climbing makes you pretty stringy
Sure.
as an athlete. And I was like, that's awesome. It just seemed like black magic. And so I went into a gym. I was like, hey, I wanted to do jujitsu, but like I don't want to get punched in the face or anything. And the coach was like, yeah, there's no punching in jujitsu. Like it's grappling. I'm like, okay, cool. Sign me up for that. And then so I started doing that. It was in the summer. I signed up for like a 2 class a week thing. And then I was like, hey, can I actually do 3 classes a week? In like my second week, I did that. And then by week 3 or 4, I tacked on boxing. So I would like do jujitsu for an hour. Then I did the boxing class. And then I ended up doing it like 6 days a week, basically for the next like 8 years. That's all I wanted to do. And
And then what is great, and for those of you listening, this is I think this is also the raw DNA of a competitive psycho. You didn't just do this constantly. You actually founded a martial, I'm going to say it wrong, but like open mat mixed martial arts academy when you were in college, correct?
after just at college.
After college, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So what inspired you to actually do that outside of, hey, this shaped me as a human? And maybe that's it, but that's
Yeah.
taking it one step farther than most people do, right?
Yeah, I only have one setting and it's like all gas. And so, I like that's my life became mixed martial arts. I traveled to Brazil for 3 months to train with our top team there, and I competed in the Copa do Mundo, and like and trained with all
How'd you
these.
do?
Not great, not awesome.
But you did it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's
Yeah,
great.
and I was training with like UFC world champions every day of the week, and it was just incredible experience. And you just like as somebody who's that competitive, martial arts like rounds you out because you just lose. You like lose and get beat up so much, even if you're really talented at it. And I wasn't particularly athletically gifted or anything. And so you just get beat up and you just learn to lose in a productive way, and you learn to see losing as a learning experience, and you learn to like focus very deeply on learning things in chunks and sequences and then practicing your butt off. And so I really just learned how to harness this competitive energy in the most productive way possible. And that's why I got good at sales, because I was like, oh, like
Yeah,
there's these chunks of a
sure.
call. I just need to get good at the first chunk of the call. So I'm gonna like obsessively practice, and then I'm gonna work on the next thing. And there's the mindset of learning translates so directly. And so I was just obsessed with it. And then I met a guy, I was training with a guy who became my partner. And we were like renting space out of a fitness center, like a Good Life Fitness. And
Good life fitness, yeah.
I was like, oh man, we were talking about it would be awesome to have our own space. And I was like, yeah, like I'll put up some money and I'll get involved with you. And just because I was passionate about the sport and didn't really think through, hey, this is probably a terrible business to be in. Like there's not,
But it
uh,
connected to your identity. I think that's what's
yeah,
the most important part. And
yeah.
anybody listening, you have to remember that is that if there's something that connects directly to you deep in your soul, I think that's what you mean. It's okay if it might not be the best business. Well, I get maybe this is hindsight, me saying this
Well,
out loud to you, but
I, I would
it's
actually
very
take the,
important to note that though.
yeah, I might actually take the other side of that argument a little bit, because I was so passionate about it and I did it, but like it's just foundationally like not a great business. There's no
Not a great business.
scale, the margins are low. Oh, it's a hard sport, so like a lot of your customers get hurt and then they're gone for a little while, and then
And
oftentimes they don't come back because you're
they
just out of the
churn,
routine.
you
The
injure your
churn is
customer and they
crazy.
churn.
It's just like not a good business. So I learned a ton. Like, and I learned a ton that I actually apply in my job today, because I built our first website. I had to build all the
Sure.
the CRM from scratch, like, and that's what I help our restaurant customers do today. So the learnings were tremendous, but at the same time, like I probably I wouldn't have done it if I could have done it over because
Fair.
and then it became my work. Like it became not my passion. It also became
Mm.
work, which took some of the joy out of it. And honestly, like I lost money on it.
Well, I
I,
take back my comment then for those.
yeah. And I think this is like a Scott Galloway thing that I really like from him. You know, we often tell, especially young people, it's like, follow your passion, follow your dreams. It's like, yeah, follow your passion when there's also like good economic fundamentals. Like you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
find the overlay of that Venn diagram. What
yeah.
do I want to do? What am I good at? And what does the world value? And I didn't have this framework when I was like 24 when I did this. And yeah, I was passionate about it. I was like pretty good at it, but um, the world doesn't value that that much
Hmm.
compared to like
Yeah,
what I do today. I'm way
yeah.
better at sales leadership than I am at like small business entrepreneurship.
Small business entrepreneurship, opening martial arts academies. True.
Yeah, and wouldn't you know it, the world values
Yeah,
CROs a lot more than they value,
100%.
so yeah, but it was tremendous learning and I don't regret, I wouldn't change anything because it's all gotten me to where I am today. And like, you're never gonna not make mistakes in life. And those are the things we learn from. But yeah, I like wouldn't necessarily recommend somebody go start their like passion project if it's
Right out of college.
a brick and mortar business of that
Well,
sort.
if any of you have questions about your passion project, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us because I'm sure we could spend hours just talking about that. But I'm going to make a little bit of a pivot
Yeah.
to more on the family side. And I told Kyle before we started recording that it was very difficult for me to find information about him online that wasn't about his what he's really good at, which is the CRO world, right? .com. But I did find your wedding website
What?
from your, yes, I did.
That's
And you got married at your family cottage on Lake Erie. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this is because I grew up very similar. We have a family cottage from my aunt and uncle outside of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We call it Magic Cabin. I've gone
cool.
there every year for 38 years. And it's like the central location where the family gathers. Aunt who passed away May 2021 was like the central character of all of that. Like it's a we call it magic because it's a magical place for all of us. I was engaged there, I got married there, most of my cousins got married there. So tell me about I mean, you said it was in your family for 150 years, which
Hmm.
is insane. So give me
Yeah.
like paint the picture of I guess, is it the Norton Family College?
Yeah. Yeah. It's from the Norton side and then sort of other family names before then. Yeah. So it started as our family's farm, like way back in the day. And then eventually they were no longer farming and then subdivided it and sold off some other cottages and that piece of property. So look, the cottage is actually, it's the old milking barn. It's the stone structure of
Nice.
the milking barn that they've just like tacked a bunch of rooms onto. So yeah, it's been in my family forever. My wife and I started dating there, got engaged there, got married there, and I found out we were having our daughter there. And so like very special spot in my heart. And unfortunately, we had to sell it this year because it was like passing from that generation down, and there was
Sure.
nobody really to take it on. Speaking of like not making passion-driven decisions, I was very close to being like, you know what? I'll take it on. I will be the
Yeah.
one that like
Yeah.
bears that financial burden. And eventually I was like, this is just an insane economic decision. It's not winterized. It needs a bunch of work. And as much as it like pained me significantly to have that like fall out of the family, it just like I try to be as unmaterialistic as possible. And the thing that was important about that place is the memories.
Yeah.
And
100%.
you can make memories other places, but like putting your family in a disadvantaged financial position because you're following
Sentiment.
sentiment and
Nostalgia.
nostalgia
Yeah.
is just like I was trying very hard not to fall in that trap. Somebody actually asked me, we were doing like we were doing a icebreaker question for a leadership thing, and people asked like, what's the one thing you would take out of your house? What's your one prized possession if your house was burning that you would take out of the house? I was like, honestly, sort of nothing. Like, there's nothing
I'm the
that
same,
it's
man.
irreplaceable. And I said like my daughter's stuffed animal, like because it's special to her. But other than that, like, photos are important, but like if they're gone, like doesn't change your life. Like this is
Right.
going back to the health and wellness conversation. This is like what Stoicism will teach you. It's like or Buddhism or any of these like ancient philosophies, those material things in your possessions like don't define you as a person or your experience of the world. When they're gone, actually nothing about your day-to-day life changes. And so I try as much as I can like not to be attached to things. And that helps me just like have such an even keel approach to life. And I think like meditation and mindfulness, studying of Buddhism and Stoicism will teach you those things. That is definitely something I would encourage everybody to like go down the road and discover.
So I think that a lot of these lessons, I don't know if you were learning and reading about them before you had children, but
I
I
was, yeah.
found myself actually diving in more to the Stoicism and other teachings after I've had children, mostly because I want I want them to learn from me as much as I'm learning from them. What's something that you've learned from your children that has surprised you or uh, have like inspired you? Because it happens almost daily for me. But what have you learned from your kids? Because you have two, right? Two kids.
Yeah, two. You definitely learn to find equanimity. Like it will test your stoicism and your mindfulness on a daily basis. And like every one of those things is a opportunity to do a productive rep. Like this is a framework from a book called Search Inside Yourself. And every time that something challenging happens to you or you're meditating, your mind wanders and you have to bring it back, that is like you're doing a bicep curl. That is like you're doing one squat. You're putting your body under tension. You're putting your mind under tension when your kids are like splashing you and making you soaking wet, like when you're trying to get them out. Not that that happened to me last night. And it's an
That
opportunity to like,
also happened to me last night. And my children are quite a bit older
yeah,
than yours.
yeah. And for some reason that drives me nuts in particular. I'm like, oh, I'm soaking wet now. I gotta like change. But it's an opportunity to like practice that thing. It's like I'm trying
Right.
to get good at the muscle of staying grounded and present and like not let outside the actions of outside things affect my internal state. And so like every one of those things is an opportunity to practice. So you're getting nonstop practice.
So let's go back to last night. Is there something that you physically or mentally do to do that bicep curl?
Yeah, the
Or
physiological
or is it
side.
after the fact? A lot of times it's after the fact for me where I'm like, all right, I need to learn from this situation. I probably shouldn't have acted it out like that, like my 6-year-old. I'm a
Yeah.
40-year-old man, right? So how do you do it in the moment?
Yeah, very difficult in the moment. And for me, it's that physiological sigh, like when something like when I feel, because with mindfulness, you develop like an awareness of how you feel your emotions. Like for me, I feel frustration in my chest. And
Mhm.
some people, their hands get a certain way or their head gets hot. I feel like a heat in my chest, in the front of my chest. And doing meditation will like allow you to develop that like body awareness. And so as soon as I feel that happening, I try to like take a pause and do that physiological sigh. It's the best way to reset your nervous system. Like big deep breath in, and then at the top of your breath, you try to take like one more inhale to like overfill your lungs, and then you like let your
As you're getting water right in the face.
yeah, I like stepped out of the room. I was like, okay, guys, like daddy's just gonna daddy's gonna let you guys play, and you like take that moment to like do that physiological side. Like we'll be in the car and like it'll be chaos and people like my
Yeah.
wife and I will be like getting into it, and I'll just be like, she's like, are you doing the breathing thing right now? I'm like, yeah. I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah. She's like, are you doing the breathing thing? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I need to like, I'm just trying to reset. So that's my thing, and it also is like the trigger for me to be like, okay, like you gotta get you have to get control back over your inner state.
So
So
do you meditate every day?
No,
Like,
no,
is
I'm
that
like,
a,
I'm so intermittent at it. So it's maybe like I'll go through waves where it's like pretty consistent almost every day. And then there'll be waves where it's like once or twice a week, or I'm just like trying to find little like moments in my day to just like
yeah,
sit for like literally just 2 minutes before a meeting starts, especially when I've been ripping meetings and maybe it's like
yeah.
an interview, so I have to be on, or there's like a frustrating conversation. Like I just try to find 3 minutes to like sit at my desk and just like pause and take a couple breaths
Hmm.
and recenter myself. Like you just fit. I find for me now, I just like fit it in wherever.
And
And
you have to. I mean, and that's some, I tried to get into it over COVID and it didn't stick. And for me, it's sprinting really fast on treadmills, really the only way for me to reset myself at the moment. But I highly encourage anyone listening to I think the advice to reset yourself, even if it's 2 to 3 minutes before a meeting, is super important for anyone wanting to be in an executive role where
yeah,
meetings and stress and difficult conversations are a day almost daily. I don't even know why I said almost. It is a daily occurrence.
hourly.
But I do think that that's an important thing to note is that how you reset yourself is very important and make sure that you learn how to do it on a regular basis. So,
You can't manage others unless you can manage yourself. Like unless you have control over your inner state. And so this is something that, like I've caught flack for on LinkedIn because people think it's overstepping. It's like, hey, like you shouldn't tell people how to live outside of work. It's like, yeah, but like honestly, if you don't develop these skills and
sure.
try to, like keep yourself in like good physical condition so you have the stamina to be able to focus, and unless you're developing the like skills of mental discipline and like
Yeah,
your own like inner state, then I can't entrust you with a team. Like if you don't have
right.
control over yourself, I can't entrust you with people. And so if people are skeptical about this and they've thought about meditation or mindfulness and like just like it seems woo woo, read Search Inside Yourself. It's the guy who built the program for Google. Um, the guy who built the program for Google wrote this book. His name is Chade Meng Tan. And so it's built for engineers. It's built for like very skeptical minds. He was an engineer by trade. He's now like a very big figure in the mindfulness world. And so it's a good starting point for people who might be skeptics by nature. And then they've got these workshops. I've done two of their programs, one in COVID, which was extremely useful. It was a good recentering. That's a
Yeah.
good like on-ramp into mindfulness, I find.
Well, and I mean, we'll end on this because we're speaking of running up on time. Kyle and I both have meetings, I'm guessing like right after this, but if coming out of the Leslie acquisition into the leadership role at Seismic, where my budget and team both 10x, if I had been the state that I'm in now, healthier, not drinking, all this stuff, I would have not burned out. And I burned out hardcore right after the
Yeah.
Leslie acquisition. And I'll forever talk about that because it's so important to maintain your health while you're dealing with high stress environments, which we all do. So I very much appreciate you coming on. I want to be mindful of your time as well. Good luck with the kids and bath time tonight.
Yeah. I'm wearing a bathing suit tonight.